Have you ever noticed something strange about England? For a country with such a long and storied history, where are its epic myths? Think about it. Ireland is home to legendary figures like Chalain and the mystical Tuatha Dé Danann. Wales has the Mabinogion. Scotland has its Selkies and Kelpies. Greece has the Olympians, and Scandinavia has the Norse gods. But England, it seems to have a gaping hole where its national mythology should be. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating and somewhat tragic story of how England lost its mythology. It wasn't always this way. Before the Romans, before the Anglo-Saxons, the land we now call England was inhabited by Brythonic Celts, cousins to the Welsh and the Cornish. They had their own rich tapestry of gods, goddesses, and heroic figures. We see glimpses of them in ancient place names and fragments of Roman accounts. Deities like Nodens, a god of healing, and the sea, whose temple stood at Lydney Park in Gloucestershire, or Sulis, a goddess whose sacred hot springs gave the city of Bath its name. These weren't just stories, they were the spiritual and cultural bedrock of the people. But this world was about to be shaken to its very core. The first major blow came with the Romans. When they arrived in 43 AD, they brought their own pantheon. But the Romans had a clever strategy: syncretism. They didn't just stamp out local beliefs, they merged them. So, the local goddess Sulis became Sulis Minerva, a blend of a Celtic deity and the Roman goddess of wisdom. This might seem like a respectful fusion, but in reality, it was a slow dilution. The unique identities of the Brythonic gods began to fade, absorbed into the much larger, more powerful Roman cultural machine. The story started to change, the names got muddled, and the direct connection to the land began to weaken. After the Romans left in the early 5th century, a new wave of invaders arrived: the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes from northern Germany and Denmark. These Germanic tribes brought their own powerful mythology, the very same roots that would later blossom into Norse mythology in Scandinavia. Gods like Woden, the Allfather, Thunna, the thunder god, and Ti, the god of war. Their names are still echoed in our days of the week. Wednesday is Woden's day, Thursday is Thunna's day, and Tuesday is Th day. For a while, England was a land of competing paganisms, a vibrant mix of lingering Romano-British beliefs and the robust Anglo-Saxon pantheon. This could have been the foundation for a unique English mythology. But another, even more powerful force was on its way. That force was Christianity. Beginning with the mission of St. Augustine in 597 AD, Christianity spread across England with remarkable speed. Unlike the Romans, the early church had a much less tolerant view of pagan gods. They weren't seen as quaint local spirits to be merged with, but as demons and false idols to be utterly destroyed. Pope Gregory the Great initially advised a softer approach, suggesting that pagan temples be converted into churches rather than torn down. But the underlying goal was the same: complete eradication of the old beliefs. The oral traditions, The songs, the sacred groves all, were systematically targeted. The stories of Woden and Thunna were either demonized or deliberately forgotten, replaced by the stories of Christ and the saints. The next seismic event was the Norman conquest of 1066. William the Conqueror and his French-speaking elite brought with them a new culture, a new language, and their own set of stories. The Matter of France, Tales of Charlemagne and Roland. This new ruling class had little interest in the old Anglo-Saxon gods or heroes. Their focus was on continental romance and chivalry. This created a profound cultural disconnect. The language of the court and of literature became Norman French, while English, the language of the common people and the vessel of their ancestral stories, was relegated to a lower status. For centuries, the tales that might have formed a national epic were simply not written down or valued by those in power. So, what filled the void? Two things, mainly. First, the Arthurian legends. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't King Arthur the English myth? Well, it's complicated. The earliest tales of Arthur come from Welsh sources. He was a Brythonic warlord, a hero of the Celtic people who fought against the invading Anglo-Saxons, the very people who would become the English. It wasn't until later, through writers like Geoffrey of Monmouth and Sir Thomas Malory, that Arthur was refashioned into a distinctly English-style king, complete with knights, chivalry, and a court that looked suspiciously Norman. In a way, England adopted its enemy's hero and made him its own. The second figure to fill the mythological space was Robin Hood. He represents a different kind of myth, not of gods and monsters, but of social justice and rebellion against unjust authority. Robin Hood is a thoroughly Anglo-Saxon hero, a yeoman fighting against the Norman lords. He is perhaps the most authentically English folk hero we have, born from the tensions of the post-conquest era. But even so, his stories don't have the same cosmic creation-level scope as the myths of other nations. He's a man, not a god. His world is the Greenwood, not Asgard. So, the loss of English mythology was not a single event, but a death by 1,000 cuts. First, Roman syncretism diluted the original Brythonic beliefs. Then, the Anglo-Saxon invasion displaced them. Then, Christianization deliberately suppressed the new paganism. And finally, the Norman conquest imposed a new cultural layer that buried what little remained. What we're left with are fascinating echoes, names of our weekdays, fragments of legends, and a national hero borrowed from our former adversaries. It's a reminder of how fragile culture can be and how history is so often written by the victors, leaving the myths of the vanquished as whispers in the wind. It's a story of loss, but also of resilience. The search for this lost mythology continues to inspire writers and artists today, who try to piece together the fragments and imagine what might have been. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through England's forgotten past. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history and culture. See you in the next one.